Welcome to East by West Farms. Here we grow what we eat and eat what we grow. Today we're going to move into the new hoop tunnel greenhouses. In the last 2 weekends, we have been setting up these hoop tunnel greenhouses. We did quite a lot of retrofitting to make this frame stand for heavy rain and very strong wind that are common over here. Over here, we don't need to worry about snow, except this year, but the wind can be very strong and we could get pouring rain for a few days. That's what we need to protect the greenhouse from. We also did some maintenance around this greenhouse to make it easy to maintain. So first, let me explain what kind of greenhouse, the hoop tunnel greenhouse we got. I basically went to Amazon and looked at different hoop tunnel greenhouses, and obviously I have to take the weather here into consideration. And I decided to go with a cheaper one because I know that we need to do some retrofitting anyway. It's more economical to get a cheaper one, and then we beef it up for the weather over here. I don't think any of the greenhouse in Amazon will be able to work without any retrofitting. I don't remember how much I spent. Probably it's under $200. It's 10 feet wide by 20 feet long. And the review on that was have some complaint that the frame is not strong enough, especially the water gets poured in between the frames and collapse the frame that way. I kind of have an idea that what could be the most common failure mode of this frame, so that I know how that I want to retrofit it. Since this is the first time we have this frame and we had no idea how it works and all that, so Chris set this frame up in, I think it's less than 1 day. It was actually very easy to set up. So he set this up under the barn roof so we can see what it look like and have a feel of how sturdy it is and decide how we're going to retrofit it. The first retrofitting we did, of course, is to protect against strong wind. We bought like a carport here, and the first day a strong wind come by and just rip that off. So definitely we want something that's too heavy to anchor the frame down to the ground. So what we decided to do is make this wooden frame is 10 by 20 feet wooden frame around so that we can mount the frame on the wooden frame. And we also painted the wooden frame with black rubberized paint to make it stand better against the weather. So once Chris made the wooden frame, what I did is put the aluminum frame on top of the wooden frame and use this metal strap to mount the tube on the wooden frame. And then I cut that off. Okay. And then take a screwdriver and drive a screw in there. That's not going to go anywhere. the metal frame is attached to the wooden frame. Of course, the wooden frame is much heavier than the metal frame. That kind of anchored them, or weighted them. And then to anchor the wooden frame on the ground, I use about 2 feet long, 1/4 inch in diameter or 3/8 in diameter rebar. So I drill a hole through the wooden frame, and then I use a hammer to pound this rebar into the ground. And then drive this in there. Then I use a pipe to bend the rebar so that this rebar, the top of the rebar is bent and flush with the wooden frame. When it's done, and then I nailed, hammered. I don't have a very heavy hammer, but that should work. I will put a few more around it. That should give us a pretty secure setup. So that way, I essentially have about 1.5, more than 1.5 feet of rebar into the ground, and then the rebar on top will hold the wooden frame down. So I did that all around the wooden frame. That should anchor the wooden frame very well into the ground. And if we have a heavy wind, I think that will protect this greenhouse from getting ripped away by the wind. The second retrofitting we did is add this ridge bar on top of the frame. This is to protect the frame from heavy rain. In the comment section of Amazon, that people say that because the frame originally does not have this top, if you have a heavy rain, the water would collect between the two frames and then collapse the whole frame. So what you need is a ridge bar that kind of hold it, the top, so that the top is taut, so the water will run off instead of collecting between the two frames. To make the ridge bar, I basically rip about 2 by 2 inch from 20 feet board. So the cross section is about 2 by 2. And then I measured out at where the bar fits, meets the frame. I made a notch, and then I drilled 2 holes for tie down the bar to the frame. I'm not tall enough, so I'm going to use this 5-gallon bucket. The next is I'm going to secure the frame, if I can stand. I also drilled a hole on this already. Now you can see that this is very sturdy. Another thing I did is I'm putting this weather strip along the edge of the ridge bar. That is to protect the top. So the top go on top of this. If I have sharp edges, then the top will rub against the wood, and then of course that make it break faster. We will need to remove the top in summer and replace that with a shade cloth for cooler season vegetable or plants anyway. The last thing I want to talk about is the landscape cross I put around the greenhouse. I think some people, they will put a landscape cross inside the greenhouse, but we are not going to do that. The reason is we want to actually use probably even plant stuff using the native soil over here. We will have plants, some maybe tropical plants that grow inside the greenhouse on the ground. But we do want to keep weed from around the peripheral of the greenhouse because with the top on, it may be not very convenient to mow around this. The last thing I want to talk about is how we prepared the ground. I think some of the people that they will put landscape cross inside the greenhouse, but we are not going to do that. We actually plan to plant some tropic fruit or something like that inside the greenhouse in the ground. That's why before we did all this, actually Chris took the rotary plow and plowed the area where we want, this area that we selected for the greenhouse.
And this is the plowed field. It's a little bit bigger than what I planned. It's probably 15 feet by 25, 30 feet. I marked out the place for the greenhouse. There's a big old stump that is right going middle through the greenhouse. Trying to get this one out. Junipers have a big taproot. I'm not even close to getting to the end of the taproot. The root is out, and that is not even the end of the taproot. I mean, it's still pretty thick here, but I was able to break it off. It's clearly been a juniper tree that got cut off a while ago.
After he tilted or plowed this area, and he used a tamping tool to tamp around where the wood frame is now. And then I actually come to put the landscape cross around it. Once we put the top on, probably it's going to be hard to mow around the greenhouse. So we want to keep the peripheral of the greenhouse so we don't need to worry about mowing around the immediate vicinity of the greenhouse. I think it took us about 2 weekends to set the entire things up, including preparing the ground and do all the retrofitting. This is the middle of almost late January. So for 8B, where we are now, we are actually ready to do spring seeding for tomatoes and peppers, etc. that didn't take as much time to put the top on. We still maybe do a little bit retrofitting to protect the top from rubbing against the frame. But other than that, looks pretty good. The last thing retrofitting I want to do is to protect the top more. This hardware over here kind of sticking out, and then the top is leaning against it. And when we have very strong wind, this is going to rub against the hardware, and probably that's going to be wear out soon. So what I'm going to do is I tend to save this wrapping material just in case I need it. So in this case, it's perfect for this purpose. So what I can do is to put this around. I basically wrap this around the joint over here. And so now that this wrap provides kind of a buffer between the top and the screw, so hopefully that will make it last longer. We are ready to take a coffee break, but first we need to move some of the tender greens into the greenhouse because the chickens are really craving for greens, and we don't want them to come to help themselves with the greens that we have been growing under the top. You can see that it's raining now, and we expect to probably have rain all day this afternoon. The nice thing with the greenhouse is that when the weather is nasty outside, whether it's raining or it's cold, inside the greenhouse is dry and toasty. So I can still do my spring seeding inside the greenhouse this afternoon, even though it probably will rain all afternoon. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumb up. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it down below. If you have not done so, please hit the subscribe button to follow our journey with the East by West Farms.